What's up, you guys? This is Devin from CenturyFX Studios, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about group photo shoots once again. So this is part 2, or the second version of my group photo shoot tutorials. This one is going to be more about shooting on the inside, in the studio, getting everything together, setting everything up, making plans and things of that nature with large groups. And this group is going to be a bit larger than the last group that I had. And yes, I'm going to be working with Jenny's group, the NC Brazilian Arts Project group. Also, she has different subsections of that group, but they're all pretty much one. I need to go out and see them perform one day. Not a lot of clothing, because that's the Brazilian arts get up. That's the outfit that they wear. It's a part of the tradition. It's a part of the dance. It's a part of the performance. So if you are a little sensitive to that, which I don't think most people are if they saw but just let you know, it's a little bit of skin. I'm going to go through a couple of things and let you guys know exactly what we're dealing with. But first, I want to give out some shout outs to Boundless Perception. I believe it's either Boundless Perception Media or just Boundless Perception, but he was a part of the cast in the group, and he had a Ronin S with a Nikon Z6 with a kit lens, and he went behind me and got some B-roll footage, because if you notice, I am pretty much bang, 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 going, and I didn't have enough time to actually do exactly what I wanted to do and get what I wanted to get done. As far as getting B-roll footage for the video, I just pretty much put my G7 on a stand and kept it moving. Thank him for that. Also, shout out, of course, to the NC Brazilian Arts Project. They did an amazing job in doing this photo shoot with me, despite all the struggles that we were dealing with. Now let's get right into the video. All right, so organizational images or group pictures for organizations are a really big benefit for photographers, because you get to not only network with people, but you get to get into a group, an organization. If an organization can count on a photographer to produce the results that they need, they're more inclined to call them back or her back for any such event, anything that they need to do to get the job done. Now, it's not so much, oh my goodness, they're the best photographer in the world. It's more so, hey, I trust this photographer. I know this photographer. I know what to expect. I know what attitude. And yeah, of course, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, they should be used to this. Yes, but they still deserve respect. And you shouldn't take anything for granted when you're working with an abundance of women, or even if you are a woman or a man, it doesn't matter. You have to have that respect, and having a photographer that you can go to for that is awesome. So being chosen the photographer to do this shoot, I'm honored. So when you have organizations that you're working with, you want to make sure you keep those bounds, because if you have those people as your go-tos, that's a retaining contract that you can keep for a while. This is just for pros. Now, if you're an amateur and you're doing a lot of organizational group photos, you're with an organization, you can actually advance with them, especially if they do performances, because if they do performances and it's fast action, if you're a photographer, you're going to advance your skills very fast if you can capture that motion, capture it solidly, which no motion blur in most cases, and get clean, sharp images. Especially if they have these coordinated outfits, a lot of the pictures make themselves once you're good enough to capture that motion and capture it accurately. Especially if you're with anybody who is around a lot of decorative places like this NC Brazilian Arts Project team. Noting the setup, you have to note a whole bunch of other different variables that affect the setup. For example, time. I didn't have a lot of time to do the shoot, guys. We were pressed for time because there's so many people and they had to go somewhere else. A little drawback to taking organizational pictures is that most of the time they schedule the photographer when they're going to have an event, because we know everybody's going to be dressed and have their attire and everything like that. But that's a drawback, because the photographer ends up losing out on the amount of time they can have. And also, they were traveling from a long place away. They were traveling like 2 hours away, 2 hours and change away, just to make this photo shoot, half of the team. So I had to make do what I had with time. Space. We had already rented the space, but the space was a little bit different than I thought it was. But we had ample space to get what we needed to get done. So I was able to bring my bigger backdrops, my bigger sweeps and stuff like that. But with bigger backdrops, you have to spend a lot more time setting it up. That's just the lay of the land. Clothing. The clothing, well, everything was already set, so we didn't have to necessarily worry about any of that when you come to set up in clothing, because they already knew what they were going to wear. I knew what they were going to wear, and I was already aware of that. But a little drawback to setting everything up with clothing is everybody has to get dressed. If there's 20 to 30 people, which was the amount that we pretty much had, I'd say 15 to 25 people, you got to make sure everybody gets dressed and everybody's ready, and then everybody has to dress. You know, you get everybody to groom themselves, because I don't know a lot about the outfit and how it's supposed to look, but at the end of the day, I still have to take pictures and then do individual pictures, and everybody gets a chance, and that takes up a lot of time. I already mentioned the location, but since the location has a big enough space, I was able to put 2 different backdrops on there. One that was red, that was seamless paper, that rolled out pretty much as long as anybody would need it to roll out, and a scrim, which just had like a silverish grayish backdrop on it, and I just shot on that because it saved a little bit of space, saved a little bit of time in setup. All right, and the last thing was weather. Since the weather was cold, but we all knew this was going to happen, we had to shoot inside, so we were confined to indoor activities or indoor shots. We were based off of that space, but we had enough space, so we didn't have to worry about necessarily shooting anything or having too tight of a space if I wanted to use just the land or the inside area to shoot. Let's get directly into the equipment. The backdrops, I had a red stainless, Savage stainless. They're pretty cheap, or they're a really good price, but they work. I never had a problem with Savage stainless paper, so I used the red, and I got most of it done on that red. The gear and tools, I'm using the 5D Mark II, the 50mm 1.8 STM lens. I love that lens, and also using the 90mm macro for headshots and torso up shots at 2.8. I wasn't using it at 2.8, but the focal distance is really what I wanted to use it for, and the sharpness of that lens. Note, I wasn't using most of these lenses at their maximum aperture anyway. Tools and gear, we already went over most of the gear, but some smaller tools, you know, the G7 I was using to film it. I was also using that little battery pack and all those stuff, so you know, it works. I was using just one lens, wide 24 to 105 on that. It works. So why did I choose the equipment that I chose? I chose the 5D Mark II because that's tried and true. I didn't necessarily need to use 5D Mark II. I could use the ADD and got great results the same way. As a matter of fact, the ADD probably would have been easier to use, and the image quality wouldn't have been much different. Why? Because I'm shooting at ISO 100 the whole time. I already knew I was going to be shooting at ISO 100 the whole time. Why? Because I'm using strobes. Those strobes work in any situation as far as cleaning up the image, making sure that you have enough light, you know, and enough light says ISO 100, or on native ISO 64 cameras, ISO 64. For the most part, the way I set this up, I set it up kind of like the last shoot that we did. I didn't want my client Jenny or my work partner Jenny to feel as though they weren't getting the same results as they got last time, because they enjoyed the results that we had last time. If you don't know that video, check back and look at that video. I'm going to put a link in the description, but you have to make sure they get the same thing, because if they call you back, the chances are they're going to want some similar results. We just went from outside to the studio now, or the studio or inside a location where we had studio backdrops, kind of the same thing. But I did that same structure where we had full body shots, group shots, and then headshots and torso up shots. Torso up shots are really good for this kind of outfit because it really shows off the whole feather kind of festive outfit thing, and it really works because you don't want to chop off too much of that and not have people have a chance to see it. So I left a lot of torso ups in there because the torso ups work well with the outfit. Now I have to structure it by shots and by frames. So we had let's see, I want to say we had 2 shots full body, 2 shots torso up, 2 headshots next person. So about 6 shots per person. And then we had 2 group shots and 2 individual group shots for the smaller section groups. And that was pretty much it, guys. So I hope you liked this video. That's pretty much me, rambling. I'm pretty sure you enjoyed some of the B-roll. The ladies looked amazing. And like I said, I can't thank them enough for coming out, coming from 2 hours away, having to do performances, having to get dressed and things of that nature. Okay, guys, now this is the last part of the race. The pros and cons. Now, this is something I discussed with Jenny already. She was my co-coordinator for this photo shoot. She helped me get everybody together. She helped me get all my ideas together, gave approval to what was good, what was bad. She didn't necessarily put a lot of input in it because she knew the structure was going to be essentially the same as last time, so we wouldn't have to do a lot of thinking, because the more thinking and second guessing that the 2 coordinators do, the worse it is for everybody else. And it's like 25 to 30 people. If they either keep choosing extra things to do or don't know a structure, they're going to ask for everything, and we don't have time for everything. And that's something you have to think about as a photographer. You're not just a photo clicker. I can't explain that enough. As a matter of fact, you spend more time planning things out than you do ever taking pictures, because really taking the pictures is just one click, but that doesn't mean that that's your entire job. The whole thought process is your entire job. Knowing what to do when something goes wrong, knowing how to do it, and knowing how to get satisfactory results at least. So let's go into the pros and cons. And like I said, I've discussed this with Jenny before. So, because I'm a professional, I want her to know what was my weaknesses and what was my strengths, or what were our weaknesses and what were our strengths. Because you don't want to really think of it as a solely photographer thing, even though I was the only photographer. You want to think of this as a collaborative effort, because it's not just you behind the camera, it's whoever is in front of the camera. You definitely have to direct them, yes, but at the end of the day, you can't totally control everything about every situation. So it's a collaborative effort because it's multiple people trying to get this job done. Let's go to the pros. Like The Rock said, I like my desserts first. They're great modifiers. I left out a modifier that I used. The eyeliner. I used the eyeliner. You can get an eyeliner from $100 to $300. It used to be like $600 when it first came out, and Westcott had the name or whatever. But yeah, it's a great tool to use. Good for headshots, good for torso up shots, and it makes that ringy catch light in the eye. So it was good because it went along with the glamour kind of outfit that they were wearing. I think that was more of like a glamour than a fashion, but it was great outfits. Of course, they had the outfits imported straight from Brazil. Great. It was just a great outfit. You don't have to worry about anything as far as the outfit. They just had to make sure they had everything and put everything together. And they're great talents. So they're used to moving their bodies, moving their faces, using their hands to make different shapes and beautify themselves to create the great poses. And all I had to do was direct their bodies based off of just turning your body away from the camera, turning your head back into the towards the light source, getting short loop lighting, different patterns to accentuate those poses. And that was great. So they're great talent. Teamwork Grooming. I don't know a lot about the Brazilian outfits that they're wearing, but I told them before we started, hey guys, make sure that you're looking good. And I had to do this off camera because I wanted everybody to be, performance ready at least, and not changing in front of the camera or grooming themselves or wardrobe malfunctions, all that stuff. I wanted to keep that out of the video just for trust sakes. Again, we have to make sure that we're all good with the respect. But grooming. They can groom themselves because they know exactly how they are supposed to look. There was a couple of people maybe have forgot maybe one or two things, but it didn't affect the photo shoot enough to be like, oh, I'm not going to take pictures, which was great because that happens all the time. They're all mature. They know each other. It's unlike guys in the locker room in middle school. These males and females on this Brazilian arts team know each other. They respect each other. They knock on doors when they're using the bathroom and changing and all of this stuff. And they're performers at the end of the day. So they're not afraid. They're not bashful and stuff like that. And they have a really nice attitude about everything. So they're just a real mature team. The lighting was great. I think the lighting was great because of the modifier. We were using an Easy Lock Westcott, not Westcott, but Easy Glow. This from Adorama's brand. Light modifier. I think it was a 32-inch parabolic for the main light, and then for fill, I was just using a regular. I think of an Eclipse umbrella. And the lighting ratio was about 2-to-1 for those of you who know what I'm talking about. All right, now we have to get to the vegetables, the cons of the entire shoot. It was only one of me. It was only one photographer. Now, me being the one photographer, it really did not help me a lot because I was doing 2 separate stations. I could have narrowed it down to one, but I wanted it to have a different look. One thing that you have to understand about portfolios and doing shots is that when you're doing shots in the studio, everything can look the same if you're just doing shots on just the same backdrop with just the same lighting and just. So I had to change the backdrop, change the focal distance, got a torso up, and then got 3/4, and then I got headshots. It makes the album longer. It makes the album worth looking at. If you have just the same backdrops, just the same model, or models on the same backdrop and no different lighting patterns and all this other stuff, or no different backdrops or anything like that, it doesn't make for a full album. It just looks boring when you're going across, everybody looks the same. It works for if you're just looking at your picture and taking your picture home, yeah, but what if you're looking at the entire album as a group? So I wanted to change everything up. That's why I had 2 separate backdrops, two separate different lighting setups and two separate lenses. Prime lenses at different focal distances, so 90 and 50. Let's see, slightly limited space. The space was good, but we had a lot of people. When everybody started to space around us, and I didn't want to stop everybody, but I did have to ask a couple of people to back up. I did drop my 50mm twice, and it still works just as good as the day I bought it. So shout outs to that 50mm STM 1.8, because the 50mm 1.4 from Canon wouldn't have done the same thing. Another thing was that the backdrop was really small for the purposes that I was using. I was like, I thought you were doing just full bodies on the backdrop. Yeah, I was doing full bodies, but I ended up having to do the group picture on the red backdrop. And you might be saying, well, they didn't fit. No, they didn't. I had to actually stitch the backdrop in on the wings, and that took a lot of time in Photoshop. It took a lot of cloning. It took a lot of painting. It took a lot of blurring, and it still looks artificial on the wings. I told Jenny about this. I said, even before we even did it, because I knew it was going to happen, I was like, hey, this is not going to work out all that well. She was like, well, just do the best you can. And I was like, okay, all right, I got it. Because I know that it's kind of hard for me to tell them that my backdrop is not an option when I brought the backdrop. And I've been using it all day for the full bodies, but for the group picture, it was small, it was skimpy. And I did tell them, hey, we can shoot on the, shoot in the building here off to the side, but I don't have a backdrop that's big enough for the entire team. I didn't anticipate this, but she loved the red so much that I didn't want to tell her no. But I definitely did, stitch that backdrop together as best I could. But like I said, it wasn't perfect. That's not my forte, and I try to avoid it at all costs. That's why you end up starting photography your whole day with just the plan. It's not so much about the clicking of the photo, it's about the plan, because you have to deal with the files at the end of the day. That's your whole photography aspect. That's it. All right, so we have big dresses. I wasn't necessarily prepared for all of them, because different people had different heights, and I probably should have marked off and taped off where I had my lights so I can put them in the same spot, because I was moving my main light from one side to the other, one side to the other, one side to the other, and it took a lot of time. It changed my f-stop quite a few, because you might have noticed that I said plus or minus on the settings. I was shooting at f9, 1/100th of a second at ISO 100 the whole time, and like I said, plus or minus f9, because I was going to f10 depending on where they were standing, and I didn't mark anything off, put any calibration lines, and that was terrible on my behalf. But like I said, we were running low on time, all this other stuff, and I forgot a whole bunch of things that could have made my day a lot easier. So time was of the essence, and of course another con was time. We were running out of time. I kept forgetting stuff, dropping stuff. I even cut my finger and it's now sealing up at this point. It definitely was a reflection of what we were going through, and somebody had to give me a band-aid and stuff like that. So it was quite the shoot. And then at the end of the day, editing those group pictures in Photoshop were just hard and time consuming. Matter of fact, I spent more time on the group pictures, which was only like 4 of them or 5 of them, and then I did all 60 of the individuals and torso ups. So you can imagine how much time it took me to just get it looking okay and decent and satisfactory to the people who need the pictures at the end of the day. And no, I'm not perfect, and yes, I could have done some things differently based on the time that I had and stuff like that. I think I did the best I could with what I had. So I'm done with CenturyFX Studios, guys. What do you think? Do you have any critiques for me? Because I know you guys do. Do you have any other ideas? Did you like the video? Give me a like, thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.